One of the oldest countries in Europe, its territory has been continuously settled, invaded and fought over since prehistoric times. The territory was inhabited by the Celtic and Iberian peoples, such as the Lusitanians, the Galicians, the Celtici, Turguli, and the Conii. These peoples had some commercial and cultural contact with Phoenicians, ancient Greeks, and Carthaginians. It was later ruled by the Romans, followed by the invasions of Germanic peoples, most prominently, the Suebi and the Visigoths, together with the Alans, and later the Moors, who were eventually expelled during the Reconquista. Founded first as a county within the Kingdom of Leon in 868, the country officially gained its independence as the Kingdom of Portugal with the Treaty of Zamora in 1143. Portugal made numerous discoveries and maritime explorations outside the Mediterranean, and by the 15th and 16th centuries established one of the longest-lived maritime and commercial empires, becoming one of the main economic and political powers of the time. At the end of the 16th century, Portugal fought Spain in a war over the succession to the Portuguese crown, leading to the Iberian Union. The Portuguese Restoration War reinstated the House of Braganza in 1640 after a period of substantial loss to Portugal. By the early 19th century, the accumulative crisis, events such as the 1755 Lisbon earthquake, the country's occupation during the Napoleonic Wars, and the resulting independence of Brazil in 1822 led to a marked decay of Portugal's prior opulence. This was followed by the civil war between liberal constitutionalists and conservative absolutists over royal succession, which lasted from 1828 to 1834. The 1910 revolution deposed Portugal's centuries-old monarchy, and established the democratic but unstable Portuguese First Republic, later being superseded by the Estado Novo, New State, authoritarian regime. Democracy was restored after the Carnation Revolution, 1974, ending the Portuguese colonial war and eventually losing its remaining colonial possessions. Portugal has left a profound cultural, architectural and linguistic influence across the globe, with a legacy of around 250 million Portuguese speakers around the world. It is a developed country with an advanced economy. A member of the United Nations, the European Union, the Schengen Area and the Council of Europe, COE, Portugal was also one of the founding members of NATO, the Eurozone, the OECD, and the Community of Portuguese-language countries. Etymology. The word Portugal derives from the combined Roman-Celtic place name Portus Cale, a settlement where present-day's conurbation of Porto and Vila Nova de Gaia, or simply, Gaia, stand, along the banks of River Douro in the north of what is now Portugal. The name of Porto stems from the Latin word for port or harbor, portus, with the second element Cale's meaning and precise origin being less clear. The mainstream explanation points to an ethnonym derived from the Calaisi, also known as Galaisi peoples, who occupied the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula. The names Cale and Calaisi are the origin of today's Gaia and Galicia. Another theory proposes that Cale or Caye is a derivation of the Celtic word for port, like the Irish Calad or Scottish Gaelic Cala. These explanations would require the pre-Roman language of the area to have been a branch of Celtic, which is not generally accepted because the region's pre-Roman language was Galician. However, scholars like Jean Marcel and Trenoy propose that the Celtic branches all share the same origin, and place names such as Cale, Gal, Gaia, Calais, Galatia, Galicia, Gaelic, Gael, Gaul, Latin, Gallia, Wales, Cornwall, Wallonia and others all stem from one linguistic root. A further explanation proposes Gadolo as having been the origin of present-day Braga, Santiago de Compostela, and consequently the wider regions of northern Portugal and Galicia. A different theory has it that Cala was the name of a Celtic goddess, drawing a comparison with the Gaelic Cailleach, a supernatural hag. Further still, some French scholars believe the name may have come from Portus Gallus, the port of the Gauls or Celts. Around 200 BC, the Romans took the Iberian Peninsula from the Carthaginians during the Second Punic War. In the process they conquered Caille, renaming it Portus Caille, Port of Caille, and incorporating it in the province of Galicia with its capital in Bracara Augusta, modern-day Braga, Portugal. During the Middle Ages, the region around Portus Caille became known by the Suebi and Visigoths as Portucale. The name Portucale evolved into Portugal during the 7th and 8th centuries, and by the 9th century, that term was used extensively to refer to the region between the rivers Douro and Mijo. By the 11th and 12th centuries, Portugal, Portugalia, Portgallo or Portgalii was already referred to as Portugal. The 14th century Middle French name for the country, Portingal, which added an intrusive /n/ sound through the process of excrescence, spread to Middle English. Middle English variant spellings included Portingal, Portingale, Portingale and Portingale. The spelling Portingale is found in Chaucer's epilogue to the Nun's Priest's Tale. These variants survive in the Torrent of Portingale, a Middle English romance composed around 1400, and Old Robin of Portingale, an English child ballad. Portingal and variants were also used in Scots and survive in the Cornish name for the country, Portingal.